Good afternoon, everyone. From an exceptionally sunny Brussels today. It's weird and unexpected. But welcome to the 4th online masterclass provided to you by Women for Cyber. I am realizing that I've never really introduced the Women for Cyber team before, so here it goes. My name is Nina Hasratian, and I'm here today with my colleagues Nina Olesen and Saskia Brugman. And the three of us are the little elves led by our Secretary General, Luigi Rebuffi, working behind the scenes to make cool activities happen in the scope of your favorite initiative. That is Women for Cyber, of course. So Women for Cyber is an initiative launched by the European Cybersecurity Organization to help fill the gap of cybersecurity professionals in Europe by boosting the participation of girls and women in cybersecurity professions. Our activities range from targeting girls in universities and junior professionals starting their careers, so encouraging their skilling and upskilling, to targeting senior professionals as well in helping them through the reskilling process for career reorientation. As our objective and mission are comprehensive, so are the actions and activities covering community building, awareness, encouraging companies to implement trainings and courses, and also reaching out to the political level, the highest political level. Our all-inclusive approach is just reflected in our constant work with both women and men from all sectors, public, private, and academic. Our activities are supported by the Women for Cyber Foundation, which has a decision-making body, and the Women for Cyber Council, which is an ad hoc advisory body providing strategic recommendations to the decision-making body on the activities of the foundation. So this leads me to introduce you to Rayna Stamboliyska, who is a member of the Women for Cyber Council and the Vice President for Governance and Public Affairs at YesWeHack, which is considered as a global bug bounty and coordinated vulnerability disclosure leader. Rayna is a risk management and crisis mitigation expert with a focus on security governance, data protection, and compliance. As we will hear from her, Rayna is also a great supporter of gender inclusion in cybersecurity and a role model to look up to for all the ladies interested in cybersecurity out there. Well, men as well, of course. Before giving the floor to Rayna, I'd like to highlight a few small rules to ensure that this goes as smoothly as possible. First, please make sure that you are muted to avoid any background noises. Once Rayna is done with her initial comments, we will open a Q&A session for an interactive exchange with participants. And if you have questions, then please raise your hand through the available button and wait until Saskia or I invite you to speak. Then you can unmute yourself. Also, don't hesitate to use the chat as well, though we do encourage for a live exchange. And now, without further ado, wishing you all a nice and enjoyable session. Rayna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nina, for the lovely introduction. And of course, thanks to everyone at the Women for Cyber Foundation who make, well, many activities, including this masterclass series, happen. So which is a great opportunity for each and every one of us to grow. And of course, I'm seeing people, coming in. I'm seeing some familiar names. So thank you so much, for all of you for today. From Mexico, from everywhere in the world. It's really humbling. So I'm hoping the few things I have to share with you will help you move forward, because the question of building a career has come to mind and comes to mind to everyone. There is a difference between having a job and transforming it into a career. So this is, that shift is what I would very much like to discuss with you today. So, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult exercise for me to do this because I really don't know about myself. so, especially with the humbling approach of being introduced as a role model, which I don't see myself as one, instead, the way I see myself is I'm a part of this diversity, realm of people. I'm a woman. I come from Eastern Europe, but I live in Western Europe. I come from scientific background, but I do cybersecurity. Nothing was, sort of preparing me when I was studying the sexual life of fruit flies. Nothing was preparing me to today be the VP for governance at YesWeHack. And there were a lot of things that I would have loved for someone to tell to me, from the way I should dress for a job interview to, the way I should introduce myself in a professional setting in a field that I don't know. So those are, very pragmatic, practical things that we can touch upon. Especially in the Q&A, because your anecdotes, your experiences are more than welcome for everyone, to better understand the challenges and the opportunities we have and the way we face them. So yeah, although I don't like talking about myself, I somehow will do it. But let's do that in the way of telling you how I decided to transform a job into a career. Because to me, this is, what is the most important today. We have a lot of, we have a huge talent shortage in cybersecurity. So, of course, attracting more women is just a very, logical thing to do, because we need talents. There are available talents, so let's include them. But beyond that is okay. This is very very nice and very naive, because there are challenges and obstacles to doing so. What am I talking about? I'm talking about how do I, even saying that I don't want just a job, I want a career. What people hear is, oh, she has ambition. Yeah, well, I do. Is that bad? Sort of. And there are still unconscious biases today that make us come forward as people who, at least women, are not expected to be ambitious. They're expected, to be quiet, to be tame, even. And I know this because I've done, I've experienced behaving as an alpha male sometimes, and the reactions I get are not good. Other male colleagues are not happy with me behaving the way they do. So, okay, there are obstacles, but there are also opportunities. How do we move forward? So, and for some reason, perhaps because I'm sort of an outspoken person, I've realized that many people come to me for advice, and they're like, yeah, I'm in that situation, my boss is being this and that, or on the other hand is, look, I'm very much looking forward to hiring, someone with a different profile, but I don't seem to attract that kind of profiles with me. So how do I do that? Or, like, can you proofread this for me because I'm not sure, I have never, applied to speak at a conference, so I have no idea how to do that. And then since I have never done that, will they even consider me as a speaker? Well, the answer is yes, yes, just go for it. And then if you get a no, then, well, try again. And so we quite often, put ourselves, our own barriers. So, of us thinking of ourselves as being at a place where we are not allowed to do things. So that's how, I came to transform my ambition into, okay, well, let's try. And if it fails, then it failed, but I will, I will have, tried, and I will die someday, especially, I mean, hopefully not too soon, with the idea that I've tried, rather than with the regret that, oh, I didn't and I should have. So this is one very, important thing, and appreciating the impact of a no is also a way to understand, you know, how basically what blocks you yourself from moving forward. So the discussion I would like us to have today is a discussion about growth, you know, professional growth. But of course, it comes with personal growth. But you know, I'm not a psychologist, so we'll, you know, keep the personal, deeply personal things for a different discussion. So, how do you grow a career? You know, and in a career, it's not exactly the same thing. Well, the same way as you do anywhere else. In cybersecurity, it's a dynamic field, but we have also come to a certain maturity. So we have an industry that has, you know, we have an idea for this industry, what is right, what is wrong with it. And we have a much clearer idea, you know, of how to navigate opportunities and constraints. So that brings me to the main question. How do I build a career in cybersecurity? And truth be said, I have no simple answer to that. I don't even have an actual one answer to that. Which, yeah, you know, I mean, you're free to go, but you'd lose on the discussion that comes next anyway. Again, I've seen quite a few people around me grow in a career, and I have also seen my own professional path, you know, move forward and be completely not ordinary, you know. And I have come to the realization that what helps moving forward is creating a brand and being able to make decisions. So, you know, don't get me wrong, when I talk about brand, people think personal branding, and they're quite right. But we're not here to, you know, have a crash course on personal branding, because I'm not the best, you know, professional to do that. That's not my job, so I'm not very good at, you know, at doing it. However, there is something very specific about branding that I think will resonate with all of you, is the values that, you know, that basically make that brand. So think of, if I tell you, just do it, you know, my bet is you all know that what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a company that makes sneakers and that help people running and getting medals, you know. So the underlying message of this just do it is very clear. That company makes stuff that helps people do great things. And in other words, the statement, you know, the brand statement there is quality and excellence. So it is said in a very clear way, very simple, very accessible, and a way that people remember. So what, that's a brand, you know, it's a statement for the that shape you and the unique impact that you are able to make. So let's take me. If I say that I'm the VP for Governance and Public Affairs at YesWeHack, like, what do you get out of it? Yeah, that's some, you know, nicely sounding title. How about, you know, if I said that I build bridges between ethical hackers and policymakers with the goal to make the internet a safer space? You know, that's much better. So when when we end this call today, will you remember me as the VP for Public Affairs at YesWeHack? Or will you remember me that the person who shines creating a safer internet? Well, I'm ready to bet 10 euros, you know, on the latter one. So this is a brand, you know, that's the conclusion. The conclusion is there are things about me and my work, and that I choose, you know, to put forward as values. And my value proposition, you know, what I bring to the table, what drives me, and what it makes, the significant impact it makes on everyone else, this is my career. You know, this is what my career is about. So my value proposition is what I know who I am. I know what I'm bad at, I know what I'm good at. And I'm being honest with it, with both myself, first off, and the others. So when I can't do something, I just say I can't. Because if I said I will, and then I don't, you know, I'm not keeping up my commitments, and this is not good. In a professional setting, well, that's, you know, that's a no-go. So being, you know, very clear about this with yourself, this is, you know, something very, very important, because it helps you being very, very sincere and, you know, quite honest with it, and knowing where you stretch too far. So, but then, you know, because I started talking about values. So let's see how my values shape what I do, you know, shape the career I have built. So a significant part, you know, of my work today is around hackers making the internet safer and policy making. And this is very much in line with the values that matter the most to me, which are equity and justice, you know. So things that matter for me as a human, I have, you know, put into a position where basically a significant part of my job is to contribute to build legal clarity for well-intentioned hackers who wish to report vulnerabilities. If the companies will, you know, much more easily fix those vulnerabilities. In turn, we will have reduced digital risk, and our connected lives are safer, right? So you have this whole path there, right? The question, the impact of this is that today, especially in Europe, we don't have a clear legal framework for those actions. So ethical hackers are very much hesitant to report vulnerabilities. The result of this is that we are not keeping the internet safer. We are not making it safer. We are basically forcing good people into silence because they fear, you know, retribution, and they fear justice, which, I mean, is pretty normal, right? Which basically is, on the personal side, a problem for me, because my values are justice and equity, right? So this is how what matters to me becomes what I do. Of course, we can continue on that, you know, and I hope we'll do in the Q&A, because that soul searching is really not a very simple thing to do. And I know a lot of people who shy away from it. And let's get to the second point that I mentioned earlier, making decisions. So it's terrible. I hate making decisions because it means I have to make a choice, and making a choice means I have to lose, you know, the thing that I'm not choosing, and it's like, it's terrible. You know, I want to be able to do everything and I can't. So when you move forward, you have to do this. You have to do choices. You have to make choices. You have to decide. So it's the same thing about your career moves. What do I, you know, how do I move forward? What is my next career move? How do I decide? Again, you know, think of values. It's a very funny exercise that I know many people have come up with. You list values on a piece of paper, and like, when I think of it, it boils down to 6. It's power, it's money, it's acquiring knowledge, talents, human connection, and having fun. You know, so those seem like very few, right? But when you think of it, well, that basically sums it up. So, you know, and when I want to make a choice, especially between 2 career paths, or you know, remaining CISO or doing something else, going for a position that pays really well in a big company, or going for a position that doesn't pay that well in a smaller company, but you know, where I could perhaps do more things. You know, all those two are very valuable options. So how do I decide? You know, how do I make a choice between them? Well, I put them, you know, I put those 6 values and I decide like what matters the most to me. And according to this, which of those options brings me closest, you know, to what matters most to me. So does money matter the most, or power, or having fun? I mean, you know, gaining knowledge has always mattered to me, and creating meaningful human connections, that's true. But for many years, what really mattered to me was having fun, you know, going for an adventure, for living through things that I have never experienced before. So, you know, I can't explain you how much adventure you get when years and years, you know, for years, you live on a plane and you go to, well, very weird places where even National Geographic has not been very often. That's quite an adventure, you know, like getting off the plane at 5 o'clock in some small state in Central Asia and seeing the army in front of the plane. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never getting out of this country. Because I remember distinctly, I didn't have a visa because, you know, they told me you have the invitation by the prime minister and you get a business visa at the airport, so don't worry. And there, you know, I am with my letter printed out, which I could have written. I didn't have any signature or anything. It's 5 in the morning. I don't speak the language, or very poorly. And there is like people from the army, you know, waiting for me at the plane. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I saw myself, you know, in jail there in some random country in Central Asia. And what turned out is that they were expecting for me, that's true, but they were expecting for me to escort me to my hotel because I have a letter from the prime minister, you know. And then you're like, okay. And then you get home, you know, and you're like, this time it went well. Will it always go that well? I don't know, you know. And then, okay, you sit down, you know, sometimes things, not that funny things happen, and or you grow older. I mean, I grew older. I don't know whether I grew wiser, but I definitely grew older. So, you know, when I went through some serious soul searching, and, you know, I realized I was like really tired of living in a plane, you know, like having boarding a plane every now and then to go to I don't know where, eating stuff that was really not healthy, gaining weight, then, you know, dropping it down, then gaining again, sleeping badly because 5-star hotel or not, you are always jet lagged and you are always running after some flight or whatnot. So it's like, okay, what matters to me? How do I, you know, how do I transform my ability to learn and my desire to do good for people, you know, into a career? First into a job and then into a career. And there is when, you know, a different view from those I was telling you about earlier came on top, which is talent. Because I realized that gaining knowledge is good. When you're someone very curious like me, you're so happy of knowing so many things and understanding how so many things work. But then you realize that exercising talent is transforming the knowledge into something useful and usable. And that is where you get challenged, actually, and that makes you grow, not just, you know, acquiring knowledge. And so that's, you know, this is how I started taking decisions. And, you know, this is an opportunity. What matters to me the most? Money? No, I mean, you know, I'm happy to be able to buy a nice pair of shoes that costs a lot every now and then. I know Nina understands me on this one. You know, but if I didn't, it's still all right. However, not being able to help people to do something, or to at least to stay safe, something I'm able, to give up on. And this is also, where the discussion about diversity kicks in. So the challenges that we as women professionals, for example, have faced, they shape us in ways that are really unique to every one of us. So this also helps us with handling people, when you move forward, when you get in a new place, in a new job, you have a team, you have people around you who are not all of them are big fans of you, especially when you do security, when you are in cybersecurity and you tell people that they should up their game and be more careful about what they code for, you're sure those people will not love you. They will be there seeing you as someone who prevents them from doing what they want. And this, is a recipe for a conflict. So, and especially if you are a woman, you always get, quite often, you also get this very unpleasant discussion where they try to test you. They try to basically showcase in front of everyone that you're not as good technically as, you should be. So your opinions on what they do should matter less, and you're there. So there are two options in this. In the beginning, I was like really preparing very hard and having the right keywords popped up at the right time, and being very careful about this. And at some point I realized that it worked until people were understanding, or at least supposing, that since I dropped the right keywords where I should and when I should, I was having even a greater knowledge than them. And they started asking me questions that I was not able to answer. So, you're in the middle and you're like, oh shit, how do I get out of that? And there, it's much more difficult to say, I don't know, because that's not that creates an inconsistency between the image people have of you, of someone of really extreme great knowledge, and the person who says, I don't know. So that's where I just dropped, this keywording thing and started, very clearly saying, look, I can help you on that. Should you require me, ask me for things that are more complex than this and this, I will need time to document myself, to ask around and so on. So, bear with me. I'm sorry, I don't know everything. But I cannot help you on that. So should you be willing to explore this further, I can, connect you to people who know. I can't. I don't know. And, at some point, it got so much easier, to just be honest about like, oh, I don't know. And, I can help you get to people who do, but don't ask me for answers. And there, it also kind of tones down some very aggressive people who kind of, rush you into a position that is not yours, where you're supposed to have the answers for everything and take up responsibility for everything. But you can't do that. And this is, where we see people burning out. They, you can't require continually for people to be responsible for everything. So how, do you deflect this? Well, I've decided to do this by being like totally honest. I'm a terrible developer. You shouldn't ask me to do that for you unless, I mean, if you want it to work, don't ask me to do it, very clearly. So, if you want me to just put up something quick and dirty, I could do that, but that's how far I would go. Your craft is your craft, it's not mine. However, my role is to offer you a different perspective. that doesn't mean that I will go with you and do like the peer coding or something, and I'll look at every line of your thing and I'll tell you here. No, that's not my job, and I can't. But you know, there are other things that I can do for you, right? And so being that very honest in the beginning, I was really like so stressed out, like, oh my gosh, you know, I have to acknowledge that I don't know. You know, and people have this image of me of she knows everything, she has arguments for everything, she's like very good at documenting stuff and stuff, and then I'm like, I don't know. You know, and of course you have manipulative people who will be there, oh see, she doesn't. And I realized that by just being honest, those aggressive people would actually face a backlash from everyone else around saying, but do you know? And, you know, and they would be like, oh shit, I don't either. Well, you know, then shut up and just, you know, do your homework. And so that grew actually even until today into a situation where people also understand limits, mine, theirs, that helps me to, you know, handle aggressive people who have obstructive behavior, like in, you're a woman, what do you know? Well, I don't know. I think with my head, not with my genitals, unless this is different for you, we are, you know, equal. And then you have a different lesson that you learn here, which is you learn to fold even if you're right, you know. And this is a very difficult thing, you know, because when, like, for me, it's terrible. It's been perhaps one of the most difficult lessons I learned. In my mind, you know, I will explore every possibility. So I know more or less what the answers are, even before people have come up with a question. So, you know, I'll jokingly say, I'm always right. Not because, you know, I'm so full of myself, but because I have explored every possibility. So I see more or less how things will progress. And then I would like try to convince everyone that that's how it should be, because, you know, it's logically that it should, you know, unfold like this. But I do this because I'm trying to optimize something, a process, a decision, you know, making situation or something like this. But basically, they see it differently. You know, they see it as I'm trying to be right at all costs. And people basically get something not very happy with it. And then, you know, I started thinking why. And I realized that for me, and you know, and you get angry as well because people are not listening to you and they're like, you know, she's like such a nightmare. She's always trying to be right. And you're like, no, I'm just trying to save everyone time. And then, you know, I got to think about this and I'm like, what are you trying to achieve when you try to convince people to do that way, your way? I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to learn. And what gets me angry is like that they're refusing me a counter argument, which basically is the challenge I'm looking for when I'm, you know, putting in front a possible way, you know. And now I got like, so that's what makes me angry. And what makes them angry is that what they see is that I'm not listening. I don't care about their opinions. And so that's where, you know, you end up thinking of your, you know, here like, okay, so either, you know, I continue being so stubborn and terrible and everything, or even if I know that I'm right and, you know, they should take that decision, I'll fold. Because what matters to me is that we learn and work together, even if everything is not as it should be, rather than, you know, forcing my way into a decision and forcing people to go in a way that perhaps most probably will be the good way. But, you know, the human connection will be lost, and perhaps for good, you know. So this is, I don't know whether that makes sense to you, you know, and I'll stop talking because long monologues are making me nervous. And this one has been a little too long. So, you know, I don't know whether that makes sense to you, but I'd like to hear from you, you know, like what have been your challenges as a woman wishing, you know, to do a career, or as a, you know, a male ally, you know, someone, a man who has been looking forward to increasing women participation in cybersecurity. And, you know, like, what do you think is good, is not good? What are we making well? What are we, well, not that good at? You know, like, what are your anecdotes, you know, into this? Have you tried to do that sort of branding thing for yourself when you go into searching for a job or building a career? Or, you know, how do you approach this?
Thank you so much, Rayna, for your very it was very interesting to listen to. So a shout out to now is the time to ask your questions. So just to give you a few seconds, I will start. Rayna, when you were speaking, and before that, I prepared two very challenging questions for you. One of them, I think you're expecting it, but the second one came along. But I'll just start with one.
Go ahead.
And then let's see where it goes. And of course, to also give the time for participants to come up with their own questions for an interactive session. So you mentioned having fun and adventures, but also challenges. And it kind of makes me want to ask you, have you ever experienced failures in your career? And if so, what would be the biggest failure, and how have you handled it? And what have you learned from it? I know it's a tricky question. Please don't hate me. But you know, as myself, like I'm also building my career. And trying to make my way in the cybersecurity world, but I'm really interested in hearing your answer based on your experience.
Yeah, I like the question. I mean, it's of course it's a question for both of us, right? Because for the person who is asking, you know, that question, the person comes out as like a bitch of sorts, you know, being like very, you know, dismissive and stuff like. And for the person who is, no, I'm just, you know, we discussed this already. So, and I used to ask that sort of questions in being, you know, the bitch in the room. So, you know, I have so many failures. I mean, I can't count them. You know, it's humbling again in the sense that when you come to a certain level of experience, of success, very few people realize that it comes at a price. You know, and very few people realize how you have, you know, come to that. Especially when you are someone, say, from a minority, you know, like we women are in a minority situation in the cybersecurity field. Like, let me think. I mean, there are so many fails, you know. Like one of them, I think, one of them has been having real difficulties negotiating a salary, you know. And I know, like, that's been plaguing me for years, you know, and not being able to say, I want more, you know, or this is not enough for me. I think I'm, you know, I'm valued more. And there were like a few moments like this that were very revealing, you know, like a former boss of mine once, and I really didn't live this through very well. He was like dismissing anything I did the past 9 months for the whole business unit, and telling me, look, we are thinking of letting you go because you didn't do enough extraordinary things, you know. And I was like, it really stunned me in a way that he was like dismissing anything I did. And I was, handling a whole business unit on my own nearly. I recruited, in 3 months, I recruited 6 people. I basically didn't have a team, I built one. I started having some of the most, like the best paid assignments, because I was signing up some of my former clients under this logo and so on and so forth, but because they trusted me. And at some point I didn't have clear objectives. Every time I was trying, to ask him, because I was doing work, much more work than I was initially hired for. And, having that person say, you are not doing enough extraordinary things, you're like, this is, not a good way to send me a critique, to help me grow. Like, tell me what you'd like me to do. Don't tell me just some bullshit like you haven't done enough extraordinary things. Yeah, okay, good. So that's also where I decided that, I realized that this is true. Be it a recruitment, be it yearly, annual interview with your boss and so on. Those are moments where you are gauging them and their commitment to help you grow as a professional, as much as they're gauging your commitment to your work, right? And so then I was like, okay, let's think. That's what you do best. Soul searching again. What did you do? Is this consistent with the objectives you had in the beginning? Beyond them. This is beyond them. This is beyond them. This is beyond them. You weren't even a pain in the ass negotiating a salary. And a male friend, when I told him about this, his first reaction was, does he pay you enough? Does he pay you extraordinarily enough for you to do extraordinary things? And then I was like, oh, I didn't factor this in. He's not paying me. I didn't even negotiate a salary, because I was like seeing myself as a newcomer of sort in the field. So I didn't, dare to ask for more. And then I was like, okay, you're not letting me go. I am leaving, because in the past 9 months, you have done nothing, to help me grow a team. I had to fight for a budget to have people work with me. I managed to do it. I had nearly no help onboarding those people. I had struggled for weeks and weeks to understand whether I can provide for certifications for them. Some of them were very young professionals, so they, it was good for them to have some certificates to ramp up their profiles. And at the end, it's my fault. I agree there are things I could have done and I didn't. But where was your contribution to this? And this was like a very difficult situation. And months afterwards, I was like really struggling and feeling like a real idiot, of not doing enough. And then months afterwards, at professional events, that was before COVID, I had like people, my former consultants, who have changed companies and so on, come to me at professional events, and like they were so happy, because they left shortly after I left, and they were like, you gave us, you made us believe in what you can do, and we also realized that it was much better to search for a job somewhere else where we are appreciated and where we also get help from our employer in terms of certifications, training, and so on and so forth, that we shouldn't, feel guilty for asking to grow, And so now we're better off. And, you know, one of them went on a 6-month world tour, you know, journey around the world. And then he came back, and the other day I received that, like 3 years ago, you know. And the other day I got an email saying, hey, I'm finally settled at the embassy of blah in country blah blah. And I was thinking of you because, you know, after the trip I took when I left the company, like, how are you? What are you doing? And it's been like 3 years, you know. And I was like, we just worked together for 6 months, you know. And so, and then I'm like, yeah, I was finally right, you know, to stand up to this and call that bullshit out, and you know, and decide that this is a toxic environment. And at least me, I for myself, I do not, you know, refuse to be, you know, diminished and dismissed, and you know, in a way that is not constructive. Like, what did that help me build? Nothing. So perhaps that's the most, you know, the biggest failure that I've been through. Oh, I mean, there are so many others.
Yeah, I get it, but thank your personal experience on this. Must have taken a lot of courage to mention this. So we really appreciate your honesty. Now, dear participants, it's your time to shine. Please come forward. Let us know if you have any questions. You can either click on the button to raise your hand, or even write your question in the chat, and we will let you know. Well, we will give you the floor so you can speak. I cannot imagine that none of you have no questions.
I do have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Nina. Hi, Rayna. Thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you, Nina, for your question. I really like the answer. Although it sounds more like a winning than a failure, I have to say. And I have a question related to that answer. It's not from a personal perspective, like I haven't been in that situation, but I wanted to ask if you had been in a situation, in the same situation, but it would be hard to find another job. Like imagine someone at the beginning of the career where you don't yet have enough experience to find another job that easily. Would you still recommend doing the same and leaving and looking for something else, or how would you? What do you think would be the best? Keep fighting to get more and growing within that company, or looking for something else?
Ah, that's a tough spot there. You know, like if you need that salary to pay your rent, you know, and eat, that's where, you know, you back off. Because I mean, I've been like a pain in the ass, you know, and never backing off. But it's really cost me a lot, you know. So for years, all the savings I would have, the small amount of savings I would have, I would just spend them. Just because I wouldn't, you know, accept something, and then I would have no other option but go and search for another job, and so on and so forth. But you know, it's very difficult to say. I mean, I would do that again. But I'm in no position, you know, to tell that to other people, especially, you know, people who have a different tolerance to risk and to uncertainty, right? And my tolerance is very high. I can tolerate terrible situations, but this is me, you know. I think like for other people who have very little tolerance, which is perfectly understandable, right? It would be like, you know, try to like understand, do, you know, to basically try to have a different angle with, for example, a toxic boss or someone, you know, that in a way exposes you less, you know, but that at least gives you some time to prepare an exit strategy, you know. But this is, you know, this requires a lot of patience and self-preservation. It's a difficult spot to be in, you know, and it's, of course, it's easier to just say you quit or you stay there because your rent depends on it, you know. But I don't know what is worse, you know, like, you know, being in that tough spots and having someone being extremely, you know, destructive for you just for the sake of friend, you know, or, you know, shaking and wondering what, you know, will I be able to, or should I ask for, you know, friends to lend me some money in the meantime. That's, you know, that's not, there is no one size fits all situation, right? It's your own decision. I know mine. Been there, done that. It's terrible. It's difficult. But that's, you know, I'm owning it myself. So, and the, you know, the only decision there is you need to be at peace with that, whatever the decision. You know, if you're at peace with what the path that you take, however difficult it is, you'll go through it because, you know, it's your decision. So, yeah, I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course, it really depends on every personal situation.
Okay, I see in the chat that there is a question from Carla. Carla, forward and ask live your question. No.
Okay, give me a second.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, hi. Well, it's really early here, but I'm really glad that we have this conversation. It's really nice to have it with people that understand what is going on. And when you're trying to just go into a topic that is considered mainly for men in general. So I'm really glad, and thank you so much for your words, Rayna. So my question is, do you think the obstacles for women in cybersecurity are the same everywhere regarding our gender? If not, how can we deal with other problems in our career besides those already given because we are women? I want to say this, what I mean with this is, I am from Latin America. I am in another country different from Europe. So I feel it is so much more harder for me to join those women in cybersecurity, because here cybersecurity is already kind of new also for men, you know. So just considering that example, my example. So what do you think about it?
That's a tough path ahead of you. I'm sorry about that. You know, it's you know, when I went out of academia in 2013, after my PhD, what I was interested in was data, you know, and we didn't have this conversation about data at that time, about the implications of data, you know. Everyone was like going crazy about, yay, big data will, you know, make a revolution in our world and blah, 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 blah. And like today it is with AI, you know, it will change everything, we'll live better. And it happens as it happens. I spent my PhD analyzing big data, you know, and doing the statistics on it. And so seeing all the shortcomings and all the myths about this, you know, and there were two problems with this. The first one was the subject matter. No data, you know, numbers don't speak of themselves. And I have the expertise to explain you why, you know. And I remember distinctly a keynote I was giving with two other men at a huge event in Paris. And they were getting an applause for saying, you know, those very conventional things that, yes, big data is everywhere, it will help us live better and blah, blah, blah. And I was there, you know, coming and raining on their parade and saying, be careful, you know, data there are approaches today that we ignore that will bring in bias, that will bring in discrimination, that will blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I got like, you know, and it was terrible, you know, being on that, you know, scene there, telling people your expertise and seeing them dismissive with you just because what you're saying doesn't please them, you know? And on the other side, and there's another thing, which was also even more terrible, you know, in that situation, is I later learned that I have been invited to keynote this because I was a woman and they needed a woman for their, you know, quota stuff. And, you know, and I was like, I was the token, you know. And every time afterwards that I got invited to speak at events, and even before, I was the only woman with an actual expertise in data analysis that was going to conferences to speak about women in big data and women in technology. And every time I was asking, why don't you ask me to speak about actual, you know, expertise, about data, about subject matter that I've been spending my PhD on? And they're like, oh no, don't worry, we have people about that already. And those people were already men, you know, all of them were men. And then I was like, you know, at some point, my question to myself, okay, how do you do that? Do you accept of being the chick talking about chicks and being defined by your, well, basically genitals, you know, but never being allowed to talk about your actual expertise? But it's perhaps better, you know, to bring those questions forward and to have a, you know, a place where to bring them forward and to, you know, raise awareness about those challenges. And is it better for me to just stop talking, you know, and leave room and see how it goes and do something different, you know, do it differently? And then the way I found is I stopped doing this publicly. Every time I got an invitation, I was like, either I talk about expertise or I don't talk. And very soon after, I stopped getting invitations because people wanted me to be that token, you know, they're going the chick talking about chicks. But I didn't stop doing things, right? So on the side, what I did is try and mingle, you know, try to connect with people who thought like me and who had a similar expertise like mine. We weren't that many. So that's where your, you know, opportunities. There are not so many people where you are that do this. You have the internet. We didn't have that much connections and stuff, you know, 10 or more years ago. We had a little, but not, you know, not many networks and stuff. So what I did is try and search for like-minded people and start building things with them. Build an NGO, start doing things. You know, if you have like, if you guys put up, you know, like €5 or I don't know how many pesos, and you have like a bigger, like a hackathon or something, and you have, everyone has put some money to buy pizza or I don't know what, it's what we used to do, you know, but it creates a place where you create connections, where you learn from others and you help others grow, you know, but that's where you need to go there with your, especially if you're using this as a career path, you know, leverage, that's where you go with your objectives in mind. What do you want to get out of it at the end? I spent years, you know, being asked to, and then people, you know, ended up asking me to create a whole strategy for them for free. And I was a consultant, you know, on my own. I was a freelance consultant. So this could have been a job, you know, a gig. But I didn't know how to ask for, you know, for being paid for that or something. And it was really weighing on me, you know, and even if for you money is not important, it is for people, because it's, if it's cheap or it's free, then it doesn't have much value. That's unfortunately, you know, the reality of many perceptions people do. But you are in a good spot in the sense that there are not so many people there. and you're someone who is passionate, who is committed, who likes to learn things, who is curious, so go for it and make your thing. You know, today you have YouTube, you have stuff you can show. If you're comfortable with videos, do videos. You know us already, you know. We can help you, and you have that sort of things as well. So structuring a niche is very complex because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy from yourself. But it's also a very good opportunity because you are one of those pioneers, you know, who do things and who shine the way, you know, and who also have this federative capability, you know, who can basically get people around and say, hey, let's go for that. We used to do those events, you know, like we were not so many of us, and we would ask people like, can you lend me this room and so that we can make an event, you know? And people would be like, yeah, okay, it's very expensive because we rent it, it's in the center of Paris, and we're like, yeah, but we'll bring in people. You know? And they were like, okay, but you pay the pizza. Okay, we pay the pizza. That's it. And that's how, you know, things started. Of course it takes time, but it's your baby, you know, it's you're making it. And at some point, more people than not understand that what matters is what you bring to the table rather than whether you have boobs or I don't know what, you know. It's you know, they are the jerks. You'll always have jerks, but you also have a lot of allies, you know, especially because you're someone who is forward looking, you know, you want to do things, nice things, so you have allies into this, you know. So but yeah, I think Nina will be very happy to provide, you know, a connection and, you know, if you, or help or advice from the foundation. So I'm talking about you, you know, on your behalf.
Indeed, like as I mentioned earlier, with Women for Cyber, our primary focus is Europe, but we have such a big success that we do not hesitate for a more global outreach. So happy to move things as far as Mexico. And Carla, Rayna mentioned the word being a pioneer, and I think this is really interesting. And because it applies to both men and women without any distinction of gender, as long as you're a pioneer in your field and you launch things. And this is the message also in line with what Luigi wrote in the chat. It's about seizing the opportunity, seizing as the field is quite new, it seems, in your country. So I don't know, Luigi, if you want to come forward and mention it, otherwise we will move on to the next question. But yeah, so I feel like these are very inspiring words. And I hope that these elements provided you an answer, Carla.
Yes, thank you so much. And I hope that you can give me some advices, maybe privately in another moment. It will be really nice of you. I'm planning to join a PhD to study exactly cybersecurity, but I am not sure where, and it will be really useful.
Well, all the best and good luck to you, and welcome to the cybersecurity field.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Saskia, I see that there's another question in the chat from Pierre, right?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if Pierre, maybe you want to come up and say yourself, or should I read it?
Allez, Pierre.
He's saying go on.
I will read it.
Shy.
So, Rayna, the question is if you have observed any positive or negative changes recently in mentality, especially in males, or if the situation is the same as a few years ago when you started.
Yeah, there are changes. I don't know whether they are positive or negative. I mean, there is awareness about, you know, about this, about about a disparity, you know, a situation that is unequal. What I see is that some men are much more cautious, even with like getting to self-censorship at times, you know, because they're like so unsure about like, you know, how to say things, like whether it will be considered as like a unpleasant critique or something. And I think this is very important for us to, to be empathic and to understand that, yes, there are a lot of people, a lot of men who are willing, to provide advice. Sometimes when it's done a little bit, clumsily, it's not because the person is ill-minded. It's more because they are not sure how to say, form is important, and I've come to realize that there are much more people who are very, who are really uncertain rather than plain out nasty, and a very stupid situation like this is, well, we are under COVID rule, so it's from before when we used to go to those big events, and so I don't know, we are in the 21st century and event organizers are yet to figure that when you have your badge, what should be written in bigger letters is your first name, not your surname, because you know what, those events are there to create connections. So, but they still write your surname in big letters. So what happens is when you are a woman, your badge basically is on your boobs, right? And so quite often you see people, men coming to you. So they try to read your name to say, hello, blah, like Marie or whatever. But they're like, they find themselves looking at your, at your chest. And so, and that they will be looking at your chest, and everyone is like super uncomfortable. And you have like those 10 seconds where everyone is like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? It's not necessarily conscious, And this is a situation that is not created by either of you. It's just, event organizers still need to figure out that to create connections, you need to know people's names. So the way I found, doing this is I go there, I extend my hand. Hi, I'm Rayna. Who are you? And so the person is a little bit surprised in the beginning, but they're so relieved of not having to look at my boobs to see my name. So, and quite often you get that situation, you don't necessarily realize it. What you see is a man looking at your chest in a professional setting, and you're like, for fuck's sake, why are you looking at my chest? I'm your colleague. Can't you just look me in the eye, as everyone else? But this is forgetting that there is an actual reason. That is not a sex-based reason for them to look at there. So, and my guess is this thing happens much more often than we think, when, well, men try to be, to provide advice and to be helpful, but they just don't know how. So perhaps that's the biggest challenge, or the biggest change that I'm seeing is everyone is like trying to figure out how to do things well. And the fact is we don't necessarily have help from the outside, from HR, from coaches, from event organizers, from whatnot. So, it's up to us to approach this in a very, nice and sincere way. I don't know how you'd react, so I'll just, state my doubts, and like the person may have not thought about that, but they understand also why you're, being forward with it. So I found this is fine, especially with people you don't know, because you never know basically why the other person is not feeling well or comfortable in the discussion, and you never know what you missed or something. And it's the same for them, and they're like, whatever. So my guess is, yeah, this is perhaps the most, the biggest change that we have is we are adapting to one another, because as much as we would like, to say there is no, many people will say, I don't care whether you're a woman, a man, a dog, or whatever. As long as you are skillful and you fit you know, the culture, and we have a good feeling together, and so on and so forth. This is true, but you know, there is very short distance between saying this and going to, there is no gender problem in cybersecurity. Oh, no, there is. There is. Even if it's just this question of, I see a job description and I'm like, I'm not qualified for that. I will not even respond because, you know, I'll never make it through. Because this is what we have been led to believe, you know, through our education, through so many things. And I tend to say it's easier when you are just out of school, you know, of university or whatever, because nobody expects you to have, you know, huge experience and whatnot. But the situation gets really tricky when you are mid-level, you know, or when, even worse, you are young in the field. Like, I have seen so many people with law degrees, for example, who want to get into cybersecurity because there are so many, you know, challenges around compliance and so on and so forth. And so they're like, and predominantly they're women, you know, so humanities women. So, and they're young in the field of cybersecurity, but they do have previous experience. They have been managers, they have built offers, they have done business development, they have, you know, pleaded in front of a court or, you know, a judge or something. So they have a whole bunch of other experience, you know, of other skills that they don't know how to transform into something that is useful for this field. So they are not young as in young age, they're young in the field. But you see these people accepting, well, lower positions, lower salaries, and so on and so forth, under the pretenses that they're, well, not cybersecurity professionals. They're like, yeah, okay, but if you keep on, you know, pushing them down and not helping them understand their value, how do you want them to become, you know, more skillful and professionals in cybersecurity and to grow? So that's perhaps where we need all of us, you know, as a community, to sit and think about how we approach this, about how we approach mid-level careers, or, you know, immigrants from other fields who would like to join our flourishing industry where everyone's happy.
I think there is enough content there for another masterclass about how to switch careers.
Complicated.
There is another question related to the previous one from Emmanuel. That is that how can you, as a man, help diversify the workplace? As a man in IT.
If I may intervene as well, or your experience to share as a man in IT working with women, it's more than welcome. So please come forward as well.
Yeah, I would be really interested to hear, like, what's been difficult for you, you know, because quite often, like, for example, when you search for a mentor, well, you know, I've had one mentor and it was a man. And my guess is, if I want to move further in a career, I would search for another male mentor. Not because you know, I'm more dismissive of women, but because they're those who will judge me at the end, you know? So that's, I mean, I would like, if you guys who are with us today have, you know, anecdotes to share about, you know, challenges that you face, so that we are not talking in your name, you know, on your behalf. Just go ahead, you know. So let's see whether someone will dare. No, nobody. Let's give them 30 more seconds to come forward and be brave. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
well, Emmanuel just replied. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw it. So he says he organizes free and open source software conferences, and it is really hard to find women speakers. This is true. This is how we know each other, by the way. We from 2008, I think, is when we got to know each other. That doesn't make us younger. Anyway, you know, like there are different ways to increase diversity and to be more inclusive, because you know there is one thing of having greater diversity, there is more it's a different thing to be more inclusive, like be it in the workplace, be it on a conference, like what it's a very difficult thing to not single out people based on their gender or, you know, skin color or age or something. So it's a double-edged sword, right? On one side, you want to have more diversity, but on the other, if you're looking for, you know, a woman or an elderly or a very young person and so on, the question that comes to that person's mind may be, am I there because of my skill set? Or am I there because, you know, I check a box of that diversity checkbox list, you know? And it's really difficult to make things right with everyone. So you can have, you know, you can have a very inviting position where you don't make people, you know, feel bizarre, you know, in a way like they are different. Yes, we all are, and we are all unique. But, you know, if you want to attract more people, you know, offer them mentoring sessions, like or offer things like for conferences, for example. We have, you know, in our next conference, we want to have, I don't know, 1/3 of people who are first-time speakers. And there you see how many, you know, women or young people you can get, because they will like feel welcome. It's not them. We don't want more women. We want people who have never taken, you know, the floor before. So we are not singling you out as a bizarre, you know, person. What we are saying is you have never, you know, taken the floor and spoken in front of people. Okay, it's okay. We want to hear from you. We'll help you out a little, you know, be more comfortable, you know, navigate the questions and so on and so forth. But we are happy to hear from you because, you know, you have a fresh perspective, you know. It's not because we are not willing to hear from you because you're a woman or a dog. It's because you have a different perspective, right? So this is a way, you know, to get people there. And also you have, especially in cybersecurity, where recruitment still happens very much, you know, in a very informal way, where you've bumped into someone in a conference and the person is actually searching for a job and so on and so forth. I get a lot of people asking me to forward, you know, offers, and asking me to reach out to recruiter friends who, you know, specialize in diversity issues and so on and so forth. And like more and more men are coming to me and saying, like, I know you are not looking for a job, but do you know someone? If it's a woman, then it's great. I'm happy, you know, to me, as long as the person is skillful, I don't mind. But if you have, you know, a cool person in mind, especially if it's a woman, we would like to increase our diversity. Can you please, you know, forward this? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I will. You know, so this is also, you know, a way to help people out, or offer to review resumes. I mean, I hate this exercise. It's terrible. I'm so bad at it. You know, I come from academia. The shortest resume I have ever written is 3-page long. You know, it's the shortest. It's terrible. So I'm terrible at this exercise. But I know that I have asked people with a much, you know, more classical career path to look at it and say, like, what would you change? Like, or what would you be expecting to see there that I haven't, you know, included? And they will be like, oh, you should perhaps talk about this. Oh, why didn't you say anything about that? You know, it's interesting what you did there. Why didn't you, you know, mention it? And so on and so forth. And this is something you can do. So perhaps it's not your conference or your team, but you'll make happy people elsewhere. So, you know, overall, we're all good because we see more people coming in and more people, you know, daring to come forward, you know, and apply to a position and so on and so forth, right? So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Rayna. Actually, if I may add, for Women for Cyber. Emmanuel, if you are looking actually for female experts in cybersecurity, ICT, digital, or anything, please have a look at the Registry of Experts, the Women for Cyber Registry of Experts that we have launched in cooperation with the European Commission, where indeed women working in cybersecurity are invited to create profiles based on their competences, their skills, and this is how you can like do research through these and find out the right people depending on the panels you're organizing. Of course, the Women for Cyber Council is also composed of around 36 very skilled, very high-level experts in Europe in cybersecurity, and we're always happy to ensure the connection. And finally, we are currently working on. Thank you, Saskia, for putting the link to the registry in the chat. And finally, we are now working on publishing a book. Initially, it was supposed to be the book of 100 women in cybersecurity in Europe. However, I am sorry to say that we could not stop ourselves to 100, but now it will be 130. Because there were so many great profiles that we have received through the application and nomination process that it was impossible for us to dismiss many of the profiles. So please keep an eye open on this in the coming months, because this is something we are very proud of and it will be coming soon. Now I'm done with the Women for Cyber promotion. We have like 3 minutes left for a last question. I don't know if Christophe still wants to ask his question. Come forward.
It's a good way. Yeah, go ahead, Christophe.
Hello, could you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, my question is simply, I would wish to know, is it the best way, a good way to begin with a risk manager job in cybersecurity? Because I think maybe it's better to have a lot of experience, of technical experiences before getting a job like this. What do you think?
It really depends on the environment where you are. Thank you for that. Sorry, I was too much into the question. Thank you for bringing this. It's a great question and a difficult one, because there is again no size fits all answer to this. But what you could do is risk management needs a different, intellectual setup. So someone who doesn't have a huge technical background can actually be a good choice for that, because they will have a very different background, and they will know how, other people think, how the actual users think, sort of. And what they will try to do is translate this non-technical knowledge, or this very operational, pragmatic knowledge of how accounting thinks, or what they use, or how, I don't know, HR, what their current job is, like everyday job is, to a cybersecurity, question. So they will be like, okay, I know that HR or accounting, they spend their days, you know, opening emails and opening attached files. So in a from a risk management perspective, if I need to, you know, move forward with like a bigger strategy to preventing, you know, a ransomware attack or something, well, I know that those people, their everyday life is clicking on attached, you know, files. So I will go and talk to them and try, you know, to raise awareness with them specifically about the dangers that can come from some, you know, weird attached documents, attached files, you know. But I know that that's something very important to them. I won't go with this question to developers, because developers, they don't even use emails. They are on Slack all day long, you know. So it doesn't, to them, they don't care about whatever email stuff is. So you can have this sensitivity, you know, about how other people basically work and they do from someone who is not you know, deep into very technical things, because they just have a you know, a different view on things. So that may be indeed a good way. And then, of course, if the person wants to move in, you know, to more technical things, then, you know, you have so many trainings out there that you can use and use for them to learn, you know, and to raise up their skill set. And yeah, I hope this answers your question. And we need to finish.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rayna, and thank you to all participants. I'm sorry, yes, we need to as we are 1 minute past the deadline of the masterclass. But yes, thank you so much to all for following us, for your interest in Women for Cyber. Please don't hesitate to visit our website. It's the womenforcyber.eu, or contact us through the email address hello@womenforcyber.eu. If you have more questions for Rayna, we'd be happy to forward them to her. Rayna, thank you so much again for being here with us today and for sharing your experience. It has been eye-opening, enlightening, and I hope that our participants also benefited from your very wise and experienced words. Thank you, everyone, and have a really nice end of Friday and a great weekend to come.
Thank you, Rayna. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a
Have a
nice
good day.
weekend.
You too.
Bye.